In the heart of the old African kingdom of Mbondo, where lush forests framed the golden expanse of the savannah, tradition was everything. The people lived by the ancient laws of their ancestors, passed down from generation to generation, unquestioned and unwavering. Among the laws, one stood above all. No man or woman was to marry or bear child with anyone from another village. To do so was to invite the wrath of the gods. Naima, a young woman of unparalleled beauty, had dared to defy this sacred decree. Her love for Akin, a hunter from the neighboring village of Kagundo, had blossomed in secret. Their stolen moments in the forest were a refuge from the world's judgment, a world that could never understand the fire of their bond and what they shared. But fate was cruel. She got pregnant for Akin, and her swelling belly betrayed her secret. The elders convened an emergency council and asked who was the father of the baby she was carrying. Naima stood before them, afraid but ready to face whatever consequence her action would be. I'm sure they would send me away to Akin's village, she said to herself. Little did she know that a far greater punishment awaited her. You have brought shame to Mbondo, thundered Chief Okuta, his beaded staff striking the ground for emphasis. The gods will not forgive this betrayal. I followed my heart, Naima replied, her voice steady though her hands trembled. Love is not a crime, and we should be allowed to love whoever we want, irrespective of where they come from. Her words only fueled their anger. The village women muttered in disgust while the men shook their heads. The chief priest, draped in red and white ceremonial robes, stepped forward. You think you know more than us? We made a covenant years ago with the deities that none of our kindred will ever marry outside our clan, and you think you can just wake up one morning and change that? You are hereby banished from this community, he declared, his voice booming. Let her perish in the forest as payment for her sins. Only then will the curse upon our land be lifted. Don't you think we should perform a sacrifice and ask what the gods will have us do in this situation? A young woman from the crowd asked. After all, no one has ever broken this rule, and it has even been rumored that it was a decree made by a wicked and selfish king, which everyone has now come to accept as a tradition, she added. The chief priest looked at her angrily. Will you keep quiet, young woman? How old are you, and who do you think you are to speak in a gathering like this? Take her to the forbidden forest, he barked, and let every person in this village learn from this. Our traditions are sacred irrespective of how it came about, and anyone who dares to break it will meet a worse fate than Naima. Despite her protests, Naima was dragged from the village into the entrance of the forbidden forest, her pleas falling on deaf ears. The forest was alive with the hum of insects and the occasional cry of distant predators. Naima stumbled through the dense underbrush, clutching her belly. The elders had left her with nothing but a small bundle of food and a single cloth. The forest she has been banished into was one that even the villagers dreaded mentioning cause of the evil tales that has been told about the place. She had thought she would only be banished from her village and sent to live with her lover, Akin. She never imagined that they would send her here. The days turned to nights, and she grew weaker. Yet her spirit did not break. She sang to her unborn child, whispering words of hope and love. The nights were usually the hardest, as the thickness of the darkness she felt was nothing compared to what she has ever experienced before. With time, she figured how to live with it, and even made a little shelter for herself while feeding on the fruits and familiar herbs she could lay her hands on. When the time came for her to give birth, it was amidst a fierce storm. Lightning illuminated the forest as Naima, racked with pain, gave birth beneath the sprawling roots of a great baobab tree. Her screams echoed through the forest, and when the final cry of her newborn pierced the air, silence followed. Naima's life ebbed away, her final act being whispered blessing for her son, and her eyes closed as tears flowed down her cheeks. A female gorilla, drawn by the cries of the infant, approached cautiously. She sniffed the air, her large brown eyes filled with curiosity. The human child, still yet to be cut off from his mother's umbilical cord, laid on the bare floor crying, and her motherly instinct overpowered logic. The gorilla, whom the troop called Mbali, took the baby in her arms and gently cut off the umbilical cord with her claws. She cradled him close, his cries quieting, and she made a promise to keep the child as her own and watch over him. The child, named Jabari by Mbali, grew among the gorillas. His small frame was a curiosity to the troop, but they accepted him as one of their own. By the time he was 5, Jabari had learned to swing through trees and forage for food. His laughter rang through the forest like the chiming of distant bells. He was so full of life, jovial and well-mannered, that everyone in the troop loved him. His smartness and ability to figure out what other gorillas struggle with was one that made the other animals endeared to him. To those who had never seen a human before, he was a blessing that the gods sent down to them, while to the elderly gorillas in the troop, they silently watched with great admiration as to how a human could survive amidst them. One sunny afternoon, while playing near the forest edge with his friends, Jabari saw something that made his heart race. A human. A young girl, perhaps 8 or 9, was gathering firewood. She froze when she saw him, her eyes wide with fear and fascination. Jabari tilted his head, his curiosity mirroring hers. Before he could approach, she bolted, dropping her bundle of wood. He couldn't help but notice how her form resembled that of his own reflection, which he saw whenever he goes down to the river to play or wash. That night, Jabari asked Mbali, "Why don't I look like you or the others? Why is my skin and body frame different from yours and that of everyone in the forest?" Mbali's deep eyes softened, but she had no answers. She telling him the story of his birth will only lead to more questions. And even though she knew she would have to tell him one day, she didn't feel like the time was right. "Am I not one of you?" he asked again. "You are ours," Mbali said firmly, pulling him into a protective embrace as she stroked his hairs. Back in Mbando, life had taken a dark turn. Crops withered in the fields and the rivers ran dry. Livestock perished, and the people began to starve. The elders pleaded with the chief priest for guidance. After days of fasting and rituals, the priest emerged from his hut, his face painted in ash. "The gods are angry because of our cruelty," he announced. "We banished Naima and her child, but they were innocent. The gods said they never made any declaration against our clan marrying from other villages, and it was only a rumor that had been passed down from generation to generation that it was now considered truth. Naima's son has been chosen as the one to save our kingdom, and the gods said we must find him and bring him back home." The villagers, filled with guilt and desperation, prepared for the search. The little girl who saw Jabari in the forest narrated what she saw to her parents, who, in return, told the elders of the land. Jabari was 12 when the humans came to the forest. They carried torches and called out to him, though he could hardly make out what they were saying. But he could make out a thing or two based on what Mbali taught him, which she referred to as the language of the humans. Mbali and the other gorillas growled, but Jabari's curiosity got the better of him. It was the first time he would be seeing people that looked like him that many. When he stepped forward, the villagers gasped. His resemblance to Naima was undeniable. "You are our savior. Please come with us," the chief priest said, bowing. "We know we wronged you and your mother, and our actions has led to so much pain and suffering that only you can rescue us from." Mbali stepped forward, and to the amazement of everyone spoke clearly to them in the language of the humans. "You can come back tomorrow," she said. "Let me have a word with my son." Mbali spoke with Jabari for a long time that night. She told him how she found him in the forest lying close to his dead mother, and also explained how she came to understand the language of the humans. He told him how that a long time ago, humans and gorillas both lived together and spoke each other languages. But as time went by, the humans started becoming cruel to them and would sometimes capture some of them to use as sports whenever they had ceremonies. With time, the chief of their kingdom had to make a decree banning gorillas from associating with humans or speaking their language for their own safety. They made a decision to move to this part of the forest, which the humans now refer to as the Forbidden Forest, for their own safety. She was the last of her kind who could speak the human language, which was why she could teach him a bit of it. "But you must return back to your people," she declared at the end. "You don't belong here, and notwithstanding the evil that has been done against you and your mother, you must learn to forgive. The moment you stop forgiving, you give this people power over yourself, and they take a piece of you in return." As agreed, the villagers returned the next day. Jabari felt torn. These people, so different from his family of gorillas, begged him to return with them. Mbale, sensing his confusion, placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Go with them," she said. Jabari's return to Mabando was met with mixed emotions. The villagers showered him with gifts and apologies, but he remained wary. The priest led him to the sacred altar, where rituals were performed to cleanse the land. As Jabari chanted the words taught to him, the skies opened and rain poured down for the first time in years. The people cheered, but Jabari's heart ached for Mbali and the forest. Jabari forgave the villagers but made a choice that stunned them all. "I will not stay," he declared. "My home is the forest, but I forgive you. My mother's spirit lives within me, and she would want peace." Though heartbroken, the villagers respected his decision. They promised to honor Naima's memory and never again banish anyone. Years later, Jabari became a legend. The village told stories of the boy raised by gorillas who saved their land. Deep in the forest, Jabari sat atop a tree, watching over Mbali and his gorilla family. He was neither fully human nor beast, but he was whole. And in the quiet of the forest, Naima's spirit smiled. Her son had found his place in the world.